Now it's time to talk about the fairy tale story that seems to be coming to an end. The Leicester City Foxes have pretty much crashed fully in the Premier League, back down to earth from what is, in my opinion, the greatest Cinderella story in the history of sports. We're talking about a team that at the beginning of last season was 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League. And just to put that into context, the Cleveland Browns, the most hopeless team in the NFL year after year that same season, were 500 to 1 odds to win the Super Bowl. So that meant that Leicester City's chances, you could say, were 10 times worse than hopeless. And they pulled off the ultimate upset week after week, and until it became no longer an upset, but a true dream come true. But now, the reality is that the magic is gone at Leicester City, and it's kind of hard to explain how it happened, considering that the only departure from last year's team was N'Golo Kante. Yes, he was the backbone of the defense, a crucial player, and played a major role in Chelsea's 3-0 win over Leicester City at the weekend, interestingly enough. But really, that doesn't excuse Leicester City's performances at this point. And, manager Claudio Ranieri didn't say it as much, but he pretty much implied that this team is much more focused when it plays in the Champions League. Leicester have brought their best football on the European stage. They have 6 points out of 6 points played. Meanwhile, where do they stand in the Premier League? Well, at this point in the season, the Foxes stand at 13th with just 8 points. 8 points in 8 matches played. Not what they were hoping for at all. And you look at their previous Premier League results, most recently an uninspired 3-0 win to Chelsea, or 3-0 loss to Chelsea, like I mentioned. Not passionate performance. They gave up an early goal to Diego Costa, and then Eden Hazard and Victor Moses scored. Before that, a 0-0 draw at home to Southampton. Again, not good enough. Of course, they pulled out that great 1-0 win over Porto, but they also took, just before that, a 4-1 drubbing at the hands of Manchester United. So if you want to talk about positives, they, smarted from that terrible lopsided defeat to Man U, recovered immediately at the midweek. A quick turnaround, a Saturday beat down to a Tuesday victory that does speak well to the character of this football club. However, they lost 4-2 to Chelsea in the English Football League Cup, and their last win in the Premier League came with a 3-0 victory over Burnley. So, at this point in the season, I think it's fair to say that Leicester's hopes of defending their Premier League crown are done and dusted. Really, the major concern here is that the Foxes might mount the weakest or most disappointing title defense in recent memory. Of course, in terms of poor title defenses, the last one, Chelsea, comes to mind. They were awful last season, truly awful by their standards. So, really, if you look at it from the Foxes' point of view, if you're Ranieri, of course you want this team to do well in all competitions, but this is going to be the only time many of these players ever play in the Champions League. Clearly, they're getting up for it like no other. Mark Albrighton, I think, is a great example. The same day he scores a goal in the Champions League, Aston Villa, a club that rejected him, suffered an embarrassing defeat in the second division of English football. So it's funny how those things work out in football sometimes. Fate is it can be beautiful and cruel at the same time. So, the Foxes on top of their Champions League group. Of course, it's still early, 2 games in, 4 more to play, but they've already played the team that is, in my opinion, the best in the group. FC Porto is there. Islam Slimani scored against them. He knows how to score against Porto. And, if Ranieri's going to make it work, he needs to continue to bang the goals in. I don't think that Leicester's going to be able to defend like it was able to last season now that Conte is gone. However, Slimani provides a cutting edge that maybe necessarily you won't see from Jamie Vardy, although he is still a first-rate striker. But at this point, you got to wonder, how long can Leicester hold it together? I think unless the Foxes have a spectacular run in the Champions League quarterfinals or better, Riyad Mahrez is probably going to leave. He is a borderline world-class player. So all in all, Leicester obviously have to make sure they take care of their business in the Premier League, but if they want to go for glory, the glory is going to have to come in the Champions League.